Oh, good morning, everyone. The pictures are too much fun. Thank you for putting that together. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Desert. I'm Julia Alberg-Burbank, your worship associate for today. As we begin today's service, we acknowledge that we are gathered on the unceded lands of the Agua Caliente Band of the Cahuilla people. And we commit to grow in our understanding and relationship with this land and the people who inhabited it and nurtured it before our arrival. In this congregation, we strive to honor the inherent worth and dignity of every person. You are welcome, no matter your sexual orientation or gender identity, your age or your size, whether you're rich or poor. We welcome people of all races, religions, and cultures. We welcome you, wherever you come from and whoever you love. We welcome all of those who will learn and grow with us as we commit together to embrace the rich and beautiful diversity of the world. Our goal here is to build a community centered in justice, in compassion, and in love. We are so glad you're with us today, whether you are here in the sanctuary or at home. Your presence is a blessing. We'd like to take a moment now to greet newcomers and visitors. If you're here for the first time and are comfortable, you're invited to stand or raise your hand, and an usher will come to you with a microphone. Right now, please just share your name and where you're from, and after the service, we can get to know you better at coffee hour.
Hello, my name is Gina Craig, and this is my first time here. I've been here in the desert for 60 years. When I first came with my husband, he was from Boston. I brought him to the desert, and he said, "Oh my God, I'm home. I love this place." So I don't know if any of you would know him. He was an entertainer, Bobby Craig, and he played in all the different hotels and kind of stuff around here. And he passed away a couple of years ago, and I shut down and haven't done anything or gone out or whatever. And thanks to Ram, my neighbor, he invited me, and so I'm so happy to see everybody smiling, and I hope to,
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Good morning. My name's Alberta Gardner. It's my first time here, but I'm a cradle Unitarian. My husband and I have been living in Alaska for 30 years, and we just bought a place down here, so I'll be back.
Wonderful. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Neil Rash. I live in San Diego now. I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina, with a very old Unitarian church there. This is my partner, Jim Janis. He lives here in Palm Springs, so visiting him, I hope to be here more often. This is my first time at this church. I'm connected with the Unitarian Church in San Diego, though.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cy Musikerleben, or as Joel Baker likes to call me, Tim Walls. I just moved back here after a year and a half away and decided I better get connected somewhere. So I'm checking you out.
Welcome. Well, welcome to all of you. We are so glad you're with us today. Now we will ring the Tibetan bowl. and listen to our music for centering.
Good morning again. My name is the Reverend Ian Riddell, and I have the joy and honor of serving this congregation as its minister. Welcome today. My friends, we have gathered today to celebrate and to honor. To celebrate 65 years of the existence of this community in the desert, and to honor those who came before us doing the work of dreaming and building, imagining and striving. To celebrate the places we've been, and to honor those who have led us in our wandering. To celebrate what we have done, and to honor the possibilities of what we might yet do together. To celebrate our connections to each other, and honor the sacred spirit that enlivens our heart. We share so much, our history, our struggles, our hopes, and we share the sacred breath. We gather together to build the beloved community, breath by breath, word by word, note by note, step by step. We gather together to sing and speak and dance and breathe the beloved community into being. This is our work. This is our calling. This is our joy. And friends, with that joy in your heart, with the voice of that calling in your ear, will you rise in body or in spirit as we join our glorious voices together and sing our opening hymn, Here We Have Gathered. The words are on the screen.
Please join me in the words on the screen as Reverend Ian lights our chalice. May love be the spirit of this church. May the quest for truth be its sacrament, and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. I'd like to invite Bob Rancourt up to light our biopot candle, please. Please join me in the words on the screen. We light these candles in solidarity with Black, Indigenous, and other people of color as we journey together towards spiritual wholeness. May we, as a beloved community, work to dismantle racism and all forms of oppression. May we live out our principles so that justice, dignity, and equity for all prevail. I'd like to share with you an excerpt from 40 Years of Wandering in the Desert, The History of the UU Church of the Desert by John D. Gathings. The Unitarian Fellowship of the Desert began as oblique and obscure as the tiny ad that appeared in the Desert Sun with the headline asking, "Are you a Unitarian and don't know it?" It was Wednesday evening, the 19th of October, 1959. Those who responded to the ad were a diverse collection of the curious, one true blue Unitarian, perhaps a few humanists, liberals, and those seeking something different in religion from the mainstream churches that dotted the Coachella Valley. The founders included Chris and Shar Croft, Harold and Frida Sobel, Bill and Meg Hessen, Helen and David Hamilton, Bob and Betty Schneibel, George Cowell, Lorraine Thielman, and Gray and Neil Holmes. It was the beginning. Not much of a beginning, but a beginning nevertheless. Reverend Ray Manker, a Universalist minister from Riverside, placed the ad in the Desert Sun. The merger of the Unitarian Church and the Universalist Church had not been completed. Before the Unitarian Association could divide the nation into regions, Reverend Manker, encouraged by other Unitarian ministers and the American Unitarian Association, decided to initiate a fellowship in the desert. The first meeting was held at the Old Palm Springs Chamber of Commerce office, and following the initial gathering, the group continued to meet at that location. The help Reverend Manker gave the fledgling fellowship was limited to placing the ad and giving the first sermon in October of 1959, and he asked Reverend Steve Fritchman to assist the fellowship as well. The fellowship chose Wednesday evenings for meetings. It was a group decision to be different from the regular churches, thus Sunday was avoided. It was shortly after the initial meeting in October that the group decided on a name for its fellowship. The name they selected was the Unitarian Fellowship of Palm Springs. A letter from the American Unitarian Association in May of 1960 said this: "Dear Mr. Hessen, I'm very happy to inform you that at the meeting of the Board of Directors of the American Unitarian Association held in Boston, Massachusetts on May 25, 1960, it was voted to approve the application of and to receive into membership in the association with the fiscal year 1959 to 1960, the Unitarian Fellowship of Palm Springs, California. We are very pleased that this action has been taken and that your fellowship becomes one of more than 200 such groups scattered throughout the United States and Canada. It is our sincere hope that your fellowship will grow in membership and strength. Our cordial greetings to you. We wish you the finest success in all your endeavors. Faithfully yours, Walter Donald Kring, Secretary, AUA." It was the beginning, not much of a beginning, but a beginning nevertheless. Now, if our ushers would please come forward and accept the gifts of this congregation.
Thank you, Joel. And if you're wondering what Take 5 and our postlude have anything to do with celebrating an anniversary, I want to draw your mind to the fact that in August of 1959, the Dave Brubeck Quartet released Take 5. And in November of 1959, on Broadway, The Sound of Music opened on Broadway. So hence our offertory and our postlude. Thank you, Joel. So we're going to, I've skipped several things. We're going to save that time of meditation for a little bit later. Sorry about that. It's been one of those mornings where everything is happening and flowers are arriving and balloons and choirs and all that stuff. So before the choir sings, which I have skipped the choir singing, I'm sorry. Oh, cardinal sin. Some of you, I hope most of you, accepted lovingly and curiously from our ushers little squares of paper and maybe a writing utensil. So what we're going to do now is this. I'd like you to think for a moment. We are here celebrating the past of this congregation. And we're also celebrating the coming back together and sort of a more formal beginning of our church year together here at UCD, this year ahead. If you do not have a card or a pen, Randy is there. Put your hand up and he can bring one to you. Randy, you've got a bunch over here in the choir. The choir. It's always the choir. What I'd like you to do is think for a moment, what hopes do you have for the year ahead in our community? What hopes do you have for this congregation, for its work in the world, for its work in your heart? What hopes do you have? And I'd like to invite you to, on that piece of card, scribble on the back of the order of service if the pen won't start. On that card, write a couple of words about what hopes you have for this community. I'll invite you to just take a moment and do that. I'll give you some time. I think some of these pens are very old. So's our congregation. That's okay. If your pen doesn't work, share with someone next to you. And as you're doing that, I'll tell you a little bit about what you're going to do with those cards and what is going to become. They are going to become a work of art in the next couple of weeks. And I know that sometimes we do things like that, and the things that you do sort of disappear into the ether. Well, the plan is not for that to happen this time. They're going to turn into a piece of art that we'll have in our foyer over the coming year. So what I'd like you to do is when you're finished, I think I'd like to have the folks in this group come forward, come up this aisle here, drop your card in the trifle bowl, in the crystal bowl there. Grab another little card that's in the brown box beside them. In the brown box there are little cards that have on them some words, our new 6 values. And I invite you to, without looking, grab one of those cards, take it home with you, and use it as a moment for contemplation, for meditation. Put it on your mantelpiece, on your altar, on your kitchen table, somewhere where you're going to see it, maybe your bathroom mirror regularly, and just as an invitation to think about that value and its role in your life. Does that make some sense? So we're going to come, what I would like all of us to do is I'm going to have you come up in groups. Joel's going to play some music. Have you come up in groups. If you could come up that aisle over there and go back down this aisle here, that will help our traffic. Okay? But we're going to go in sections. So I'm going to invite this group over here against the far wall to come forward and drop your cards in, take another card, and go back to your seats. Thank you. And you can also put the pens on the table as well. Okay, folks, in this section, if you could head off in that direction. Okay, folks, in this section, if you could go to the back and around the back, that would be great. If you go around the back, it's the traffic is this way. Okay, folks, in this section, if you want to move around the back and don't forget to take a little card with the value on it. You can have more than one, it's okay. Thank you. We have such deep hopes and great hopes for our community together, and I hope that we all live into them and through them, and that these values that you take home with us remind you of who we are as a community and who we might inspire ourselves to be. What I'm going to do is in a moment invite the choir forward, and when the choir is finished singing, rather than me pop up here again and say, it's time for quiet and meditation, I would invite you to, once the choir has sat down, to just be calm and quiet together for a little while before we continue with our service. Okay? Choir. And my apologies to the AV folks for making their lives chaos. Choir. So with that joy in our heart, with the new horizon in our heart, and the knowledge that we share and grow and live together, let us pause now in quiet reflection in the love of this community. May all beings know peace. May all beings know an end to suffering. May all beings know love and joy. Friends, will you sing together, Spirit of Life, Fuente de Amor? In October of 1959, things were happening that would end up having a big effect on the lives of everyone in this room. That month, the American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America held their first joint General Assembly, the first large formal step toward the merger of the two denominations into what would become the Unitarian Universalist Association a few years later in 1961. The youth groups of those two denominations had started meeting together much earlier than this and had merged in the late 1950s. The youth definitely leading the way, as Whitney sang. As the organizations moved through toward merger, many other groups and individuals worked to find ways to merge culture, organizational style, theology, and money and music. They searched for words and rituals that showed the unifying work they were trying to do, and a hymn was revived that had been written in 1933 at the very beginning of talks of connection, written for the first joint hymnal of those two denominations, which was called Hymns of the Spirit. The first two verses go like this: as tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one to seek the sea, our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free. Free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless creed. Free from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need. High aspiration, huge hopes, possibilities and challenges and progress ahead. This was some of the energy swirling around liberal religion in our country in the late 1950s. Also, during these years, the Unitarians were engaged in what has become known as the fellowship movement. In a Unitarian Universalist World article in 2008, Holly Ulbrich has this to say about that movement. Between 1948 and 1967, the main growth strategy of the American Unitarian Association and its successor, the Unitarian Universalist Association, was to plant small, autonomous, lay-led congregations just about everywhere 10 or more religious liberals could be brought together. This large-scale experiment in church growth was both unique in the American religious landscape and controversial. Hundreds of small congregations, she said, from Cape Cod to Alaska and from Minnesota to the Virgin Islands were created. Less than half of them survive today, but Ulrich estimated that in 2008, which I know is a while ago, fully a third of the Unitarian Universalist Association congregations were formed in this wave. In the first 10 years of that fellowship movement, 275 lay-led Unitarian fellowships were organized, with new starts peaking around 1958, after which the rate of new congregations formed in this way started to drop off. Of course, something else happened in October of 1959 connected to both of these things. One day in the desert sun, an ad appeared asking, "Are you a Unitarian and don't know it, or without knowing?" It continued in the male-centric language of the era, I apologize. "Do you believe that religious truth cannot be contrary to truth from another source? Do you believe that man is capable of self-improvement and is not condemned by original sin? Do you believe that striving to live a wholesome life is more important than accepting religious creeds? Do you believe in the practical application of brotherhood? You might be a Unitarian." And in response to this ad, posted by the Reverend Ray Manker, a curious band of people gathered in the Old Palm Springs Chamber of Commerce, as Julia has told us, and the rest, as they say, is history. A history of perseverance, of community, of vision, of rising and falling attendance, of varying work in the community, of times of being lay-led and times with ministers here for a short or a long time, of education and learning, of children and no children, of music and no music, a history of auctions and pledge drives, of wandering in the desert, of collaboration and creativity. A history of a life lived together in community, at first all over the valley, and then eventually grounded here in this place, built by those who came before us on land which had been taken long ago from those who nurtured it for centuries, the Cahuilla people, who are still our neighbors. 65 years of being a religious community, a beloved community, and here we are celebrating together today. Now, I could, in order to celebrate, stand here and recite for you a long, detailed story of this community, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I want to focus on a few stories that I think point to who we are and who we might imagine being together. Also, despite one's thinking that I would have a career as a history teacher, I'm pretty bad at dates and places and getting things in the right order. It's likely I will miss things, that you find important and share things you don't think are important. I'm not going to apologize for that, but I'll invite you to use it as an inspiration to tell each other the stories of your experience in this congregation, stories that you find central or transformative. I want to share with you bits and pieces from a series of conversations that a group of our leaders have been having with our longest-term members. Growing out of participation in a learning program focused on the spiritual practice of leadership, a group in our congregation has been sitting down and recording oral histories with members of our congregation who have been here for a long time. They've recorded and started transcribing these conversations, and I want to share a little bit from some of them with you this morning. I'll introduce these words using these words that each oral history conversation begins with. The interviewer will say, "We are interested in learning, preserving, and capturing the early days of our church history. One way to do that is, of course, to look through the many documents, news clippings, and other artifacts that capture that history. We also take another approach of interviewing those that were part of our church's history. This method of interviewing will help us to preserve the voices, memories, and perspectives of people who are a part of the early beginnings of our church. 3 of the people who are interviewed are Marion Elson, who first joined the congregation in 1967, Leslie Gephardt, who joined the congregation in 1972, and Sue Kaspari, who joined in 2001. I know, that's just a great span of time. All 3 members share stories of a congregation involved in each other's lives, involved in the life of the community around them. Marion remembers the days of meeting in various locations around the valley, in members' homes, in schools, and community spaces. We met for almost 20 years in the Palm Valley School and 10 years at the Jocelyn Senior Center in Palm Springs. Leslie credits the members during these long years as carrying the heart of whatever was the beginning of this from room to room and rental to rental. And it was the people and principles for sure, and a little bit of left-of-center wackiness. For a long time, the congregation had no long-term minister, with visiting ministers and lay speakers sharing the pulpit week in and week out. Julia mentioned the Reverend May Ranker, the Reverend Stephen Fritchman, who was not someone without reputation in our denomination, not always a good one, but not someone with a reputation. He was a little more liberal than I think even us liberals wanted him to be. Marion remembers Walton Cole and Rabbi Joe Hurwitz, among a long list of clergy and lay speakers who brought ideas and spirit to the gathered people who visited from out of town and people here in our community. Now, the congregation was not immune to the needs and controversies of the day. All 3 those folks interviewed remember the different ways that the congregation grappled with issues of race and culture, and the different ways that our society was grappling with them in the late 1960s, in the 70s, and the early 2000s. And issues of war and conflict also impacted the congregation. As it did every religious institution in our nation, the Vietnam War was divisive and painful for our congregation. It led to conflict and to a big decrease in membership in the congregation. But the fellowship persisted and survived. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, there was a bit of a resurgence as several couples and families from other parts of California moved to the desert. They had been members of other Unitarian Universalist congregations, several of them from Neighborhood Church in Pasadena, and brought with them knowledge and connection and a passion for our liberal religious movement. And so the congregation began to grow beyond, the congregation began to go beyond persisting and began to thrive again. It was also in the early 1990s that the congregation decided it wanted some more consistent ministerial leadership, and so we began to contract and hire ministers, often with the help of a larger denomination, to guide us and to minister alongside us. I want to take a moment here and name the ministers who have served us in this congregation. If I get to the end and I've forgotten or missed anyone you remember, would you call the name out when we get to the end? Reverend Judith Myers, Reverend Catherine Clore, Reverend Margot Ewers, Reverend Dr. Kenneth Torkel McLean, several different times over many, many years, the Reverend Paul Daniel, the Reverend Suzanne Marsh, who was our first settled minister, the Reverend Lisa Hayek, the Reverend Chuck Wilhelm, who served as assistant for a while, the Reverend Julie Forrest, an interim minister, the Reverend Barbara Fast, who was our developmental minister, me, your assistant minister, then your contract minister, and now your second settled minister, and the Reverend Don Stouter, who served as our community minister for many, many years. Have I forgotten anyone? Sorry? David Fanning. Oh, wonderful. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else remembers longer term folks? If they come to you, let me know. This is what we have in our records. So, it was during the ministry of the Reverend Ken McLean that the conversation about finding a permanent home for the congregation picked up more energy and became more central in the life of the congregation. Marion remembers that the congregation held a memorial service for a beloved member in a community center space, and that it didn't go very well, and that there was upset that working around the limits of the rental space had made the experience less than meaningful. So the conversation and the work began in earnest. Leaders emerged from the congregation, architects were engaged, this land was purchased from the Glory to God Ministries, if you didn't know that. And now I'm compressing a whole lot of work and struggle and shared challenge and setbacks and success here. In March of 2005, the newly renamed Unitarian Universalist Church of the Desert held its first worship service in this very room. Almost 20 years we have been here in this place, living into it, making it our home. And we're going to celebrate those 20 years next March. And I will take that opportunity to tell a little more story about the history of how this place was built. And the life of the congregation went on. Sue, Leslie, and Marion all recall times when the congregation had a small but thriving program for children and youth, and times when the energy or focus weren't there, when the families weren't here. Sue recalls the congregation's engagement in interfaith organizations in the valley. She remembers us challenging Christian congregations in these organizations to move beyond being interdenominational into being truly multi-religious and ecumenical in the way we acted together. Living into this space also meant finding ways to live into our spirituality more deeply. This included at one point the Unitarian UUA's Rise Up and Call Her Name workshop, learning experience focused on women's spirituality. And Leslie recalls participating in this with a dozen other women in the congregation. And then, Leslie, I'm drawing a line that you might not draw, and then moving into championing the vision of having a labyrinth on our property. Raising money, raising awareness, building relationships, and after much work and the support of many members of the congregation and the support of Reverend Suzanne and eventually Reverend Barbara, our labyrinth became real and exists as a way to connect people with their deeper spirituality, with this land, and with each other. It is there today for our blessing and our use. It has not always been smooth sailing over the last 65 years, of course. All three members interviewed remembered times of conflict in the congregation, times when people disagreed on the vision of where the congregation should go or held different ideas of how we should get there. Sometimes that conflict was quiet, and sometimes it was disruptive. We have not always dealt with conflict well because, we're human beings in an organization. But we remember, hopefully, why we are together and find ways to move forward together and learn how to be better together. And the sudden death of Reverend Suzanne in June of 2016 was a trauma and a shock to the system of so many of us, which we still carry in our hearts. My own connection to your history goes back before I ever moved to this valley, and a piece of it is the memory of my friend and colleague Suzanne. I know the challenges you faced after her death, and I know the leadership you showed, the care you brought to healing and moving forward toward thriving. I know how you collaborated with the ministers who came after Suzanne for that healing and movement. I know it was messy, and I know it was painful, and I also know you worked together and rebuilt yourselves and your vision of this congregation. Healing doesn't erase grief, but it enables us to move on into the future, holding ourselves and our community more kindly and in deeper love. The third and fourth verses of the hymn that I shared earlier go like this. A freedom that reveres the past but trusts the dawning future more and bids the soul in search of truth adventure boldly and explore. Prophetic church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free. So it is true that we are here today to celebrate the past, to celebrate the history, the work, and the vision, and the commitment and the struggle that brought us to this place. The history of this congregation that now includes surviving and thriving during a global pandemic. The sorrow of not being able to be together in person and care for each other directly for so long. The anxiety of worrying about each other's health. The joy and gratitude that we gathered for worship every single Sunday throughout the pandemic, whether we're here in this room, on Zoom, or Facebook, or YouTube, or Vimeo, every Sunday. The great satisfaction in knowing that this congregation not only survived the lockdowns, that we were able to continue to support our Share the Plate recipients, secure a matching grant to enhance our AV abilities, and to pay off our mortgage during the pandemic. We have been the little church that could, as Sarita said. Our past is one to be proud of, even when it was hard and messy, and so we revere it. But now is the time to ask, can we continue to adventure boldly and explore? Can we trust the dawning future? Our Unitarian Universalist Association has adopted new language to describe the values that hold us together and inspire us, all grounded in the truth and practice of love. How will we in this congregation answer the call of that new language? How will we grow and change and thrive into a new future with new possibilities? What are the values that unite and inspire us? What is our vision of the future for this community and our surrounding neighbors? What is our mission in the world? Currently, our mission statement says that we are a sanctuary for diversity, spiritual growth, and social justice. Over the next few months, I am hoping you will answer the invitation to be part of conversations aimed at delving into who we are now, what our values are now, how we see those values calling us to be in the world. You'll be invited into large and small group visioning conversations in December and in January. We'll explore values and vision and possibility, and then we'll use those conversations and the sharing you have done over the past years about what is a beloved community and what are the tools we need to build that beloved community. We'll use all of that to begin to craft vision and mission statements that we'll share with you along the way, asking for more input. And we hope that we can come together at our annual meeting in April and vote to affirm a new vision and mission for our congregation, grounded in our values and our understanding of the way the world is calling us. A new vision and mission grounded in our history and our current reality that might help us greet the coming years with intention, joy, and commitment. Mary Nelson shared why this congregation remains important. The people who belong in the congregation. That's what it's all about. It's not anybody who does any one thing. It's all the people, because they're fantastic, all of them. We have gathered here today to honor our history, who we have been, where we've been, what we've seen and done. We have gathered today to celebrate who we are, this vibrant, growing, loving, messy, imperfect collection of committed, passionate humans gathered here in the desert. May seeing who we are and who we have been, remembering what we are doing and what we have done, call us into a future made more kind, more just, more inclusive, and more loving as we envision together what the next 65 years might look like. May it be so. Friends, will you rise in body and spirit and sing together our closing song, Blue Boat Home?
Still my
Just a few pieces of congregational news. Please join us to celebrate our 65th birthday after the service. I have an announcement from the Healthy Aging Support Group. It will meet this Wednesday at 10 a.m. to noon in the community room. The topic this month will be cognitive decline, causes and prevention. It will be facilitated by Marty Gronwald, a certified functional medicine health coach. There's a mini flyer in the foyer, and if you forget to come, then perhaps you need it. An invitation to join Reverend Ian and the Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Ministry in welcoming friend of UUCOD, Lauren Joychin Nile, for a workshop, Recognizing and Moving Beyond Unconscious Bias. Is a no blame, no shame, highly interactive workshop. Participants will be led in a number of discussions, including what is unconscious bias and what can we do to unlearn our unconscious biases. Sorry, mouthful. Attendees have found this workshop to be both eye-opening and a true growth experience. So please join us on Saturday, October 26th from 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. The registration button is in the October 11th newsletter. 2 announcements from the Social Justice Committee. First, with so much at stake in the upcoming election, be an informed voter and join the UUCOD The Vote next Sunday after service, either via Zoom or in person for our ballot propositions discussion. We will review the positions taken by the UU Justice Ministry of California, as well as endorsements for and against from other organizations. Sign up in the lobby or look in last Friday's newsletter for the online link to register. And have you signed up to walk or ride in the Pride Parade on November 3rd? Check last week's newsletter for the online link or sign up in the lobby after the service. For more information, talk with Ruben Gallardo. And now I'd like to welcome up Sue Kaspari.
This is my time to remind you, especially all of you who do Words with Friends or the Jumble, what about combining that with socializing with some of your UU friends here at UUCOD? Twice a month, on the first and third Thursdays of the month here at UUCOD at 11 a.m., we have drop-in Scrabble. And sometimes we have enough for 2 tables. And we have enough game sets for 3 tables if we get enough people to show up. So if you have any questions, please ask me. But we'll be meeting again on the 17th, Thursday the 17th of this month, to play Scrabble. And we look forward to seeing a lot of your smiling faces.
Please join me in the words on the screen as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I am grateful for a community that cares about things going well, and I am grateful for a community that enjoys sometimes when things don't, and when things don't go the way planned. But thank you, choir, for your beautiful music this morning. Thank you, Joel. Thank you to the AV people for dealing with the chaos with grace and care, and I didn't even hear any swearing coming from over there. And thank you to all of you. And thank you especially to those who I got here at 8 o'clock this morning. There were already people here helping set up, and I know that there were people here last night. The synagogue was here until after 8 o'clock last night, hence all of these flowers for the Yom Kippur commemorations. And there were folks from our congregation who came in after that to help set up for our potluck and our celebration today. So this is another invitation for you to please join us for our celebratory potluck. There is cake, lots of cake, and all sorts of other food. There is lots and lots of food. If you didn't bring anything for the potluck, that doesn't matter. Have some food. Please stay. All are welcome. And if you can't stick around for very long, do make sure and get some cake on your way out with your coffee. There is gluten-free cake. There is vegan cake. There is all sorts of other cake. So please, our cake makers have been going crazy. It's all made in-house. So please stay. Friends, do you believe that we find truth and meaning in science and art and relationship and history and myth and experience? Do you believe that we are capable of growing and transforming ourselves and the world in the image of love and kindness and justice? Do you believe that working to build that world of love and kindness and justice is noble and holy work? And do you believe that we are all inextricably linked together, woven into a vast and interconnected fabric, a fabric that is gloriously vibrant and rich and messy and needs all of us to be strong and resilient? Then you are Unitarian Universalists, and you know it. Friends, with all of that in our heart, with the prospect of cake and food and the prospect of a glorious future together in our hearts, go in peace to love and serve the world, and probably sing along with Joel.